And it's a very sad evening from an Israeli perspective. I don't want to take issue with my friend and former colleague, Secretary of State Blinken, but Israel is looking at this as a defeat for the United States, a victory for Islamic extremism and terror, a tremendous blow to America's international prestige and standing. And anything that impairs or impacts America's standing in the world is going to impact Israeli security, because the United States is our ultimate ally. And we share that concern, I'm sure, with a number of countries around the world, with Germany, South Korea, and Japan, to name just a few. The United States was suffering very, very few casualties per year in Afghanistan. America's military presence there was key to ensuring not only the survival of the Afghan government and keeping the Taliban in check, but to simply an American significant strategic presence in a crucial crossroads of the world. So that was very important for Israel as well. We face some of the same enemies. You should know the Taliban, in terms of their ideology and theology, are very little different from Hamas, from ISIS, and some of the enemies that we face right here. So victory, I'm sure they're celebrating in Gaza tonight. I'm sure they are, which is not good for the state of Israel. As for the comparison with the evacuation from Saigon in 1975, alas, I'm old enough to remember it very, very well. And of course, there are parallels, not just visual parallels. The United States back in 1975 also suffered a severe strategic blow by depending on the South Vietnamese army, which the United States had built up just as it had built up the Afghan army, had trusted in the North Vietnamese and the peace agreement, just as the United States had trusted in the Taliban. The scenes of the evacuation, the emergency evacuation, are horrifically familiar, a terrible deja vu. The big question now is what happens next. And this is where it gets very interesting, because in 1975, the United States turned around from its humiliation and defeat in Vietnam and embarked on very far-reaching diplomatic initiatives throughout the world. It was the SALT Treaty, it was the Helsinki Accords with the Soviet Union, but most significantly, the United States focused on the Middle East. It was Henry Kissinger shuttling between Cairo and Damascus and Jerusalem, hammering out interim agreements, particularly the Sinai I and Sinai II agreements, which laid the foundation for the 1979 peace agreement between Egypt and Israel. And that peace agreement now has held well over these 45 years. It's an extraordinary achievement. The United States did that in the immediate aftermath of its defeat in Vietnam. So it remains to be seen whether now, after this humiliation defeat in Afghanistan, the United States will embark on far-reaching diplomatic initiatives, particularly in the Middle East.
Well, certainly the world is waiting to see exactly what decisions the United States is going to take. Ambassador, Donald Trump has already said Joe Biden should resign in disgrace over this crisis, but the Biden administration defending its decision, saying their hands were tied by the previous administration. What kind of message are we likely to hear from the president in the coming hours? He's already sending additional paratroopers to Kabul. What message does he need to be giving right now?
Well, I'm not going to give advice to the president of the United States. I think the message is what you heard Secretary of State Blinken say on the American news on the Jake Tapper show, which is, we completed our mission many, many years ago. We defeated the terrorists who struck New York and Washington on September 11, 2001. And the time has come to go. And our enemies would have been happy to have seen the United States remain in Afghanistan. You could take apart that, piece by piece. The United States changed its mission in Afghanistan a very long time ago, from defeating al-Qaeda to rebuilding the Afghan state. Certainly it failed in its effort to rebuild the Afghan state. It remains to be seen whether it failed in its ability to defeat al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda may be back tomorrow with the Taliban, and I wouldn't be surprised. Again, it's a victory for terror. It's a victory for Islamic extremism. But that's the case the administration is going to make. It's also going to try to, pass the hot potato of responsibility back to the Trump administration. Trump will, bat it right back to them. But I think it just shows the depth of the defeat here, that neither administration is willing to take responsibility for what I think the world sees as a major setback for American foreign policy and American defense policy.